Okay, hello everybody. So we are going to kick this session off with a couple of Zoom reminders. So if you experience any technical issues, please call 1-888-799-9666 and choose option 2. Your audio will be connected through your computer or through a call-in number. If you experience any trouble with your audio, please message me in the chat and we can call you in via your telephone number. Please submit questions at any time in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. You can also use the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen to alert the presenters that you would like to ask a question verbally. Please turn on your camera and unmute yourself if you are going to ask a question. And remember to mute yourself and turn off your camera again once you are done speaking. The Zoom recording, slides, and session summaries will be posted on our website, thefdp.org, shortly after the meeting. So now I'm going to pass it off to Lynette to kick off this session.
Thanks, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the last and final session for the FDP meeting, which has been a fantastic meeting this week. I hope you all have been enjoying the sessions and the huge amounts of valuable information we've been receiving. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Lynette Arias. I'm from the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington, and I work in the Office of Research there. And my roles at FDP are that I'm the co-chair of the Research Administration Committee, which is the pre-award committee, and also the Infrastructure Committee. So it's in my role with the Research Administration Committee that we have stayed in touch with the grants QSMO, the grants management QSMO, and they will explain what it is for those of you that don't know. And that's funny that I can't remember the acronym. But the grants QSMO began January of 2021, and they'll give you a little bit of background and talk about current initiatives that they're doing and how they support the mission of FDP in reducing admin burden. So I'll turn over to Andrea and Mary Beth.
Thank you so much, Lynette. And just a quick check, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Perfect. And good afternoon, FDP. We're so happy to be back to connect with you all and hoping that we can be like the final leg in that relay race that really helps excitingly take you across the finish line. So we'll try to keep it as upbeat and excited as we can to close out your excellent series of meetings you've had this week. So as Lynette said, I'm Mary Beth Foley, and I'm joined by Andrea Zampanis. I am the Customer Engagement Lead for the Grants Quality Service Management Office, or QSMO, Grants QSMO, and Andrea is the Solutions and Services Lead for the Grants QSMO. And so together today, I'm going to give you some background on the Grants QSMO. If you attended our previous sessions, you may recall a lot of the originating material and our background, so I'm going to lightly touch on that and then kind of bring it up to date with some more recent information that's come out. And then I'll hand it off to Andrea to talk through the specific initiatives that are going to be driving towards reducing burden. And then we'll close it out with a couple questions. Let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, let me also just say, if you have questions or comments as we go, feel free to put them in chat. Andrea and I will be keeping a close eye on the chat. And also feel free to raise your hand and then come off mute to ask your question. I think we've got plenty of time in this session to afford a good conversation. So don't hold back if you have thoughts or questions. We do encourage that. Okay, so actually go back one slide, please. Perfect. Okay, yeah, so at least two of the items under the current initiatives we touched on last time. So if you were here last time, these should be good updates for you related to single sign-on through login.gov and the recipient seamless user experience. But I won't steal any of Andrea's talking points for any of that. So I'll just jump right in. So we can advance to slide 4. So Grants QSMO, what are we? What is a QSMO? The QSMOs there's 4 of them, and they were created in 2019. There were 4 different agencies that were pre-designated by OMB to perform this function of a quality service management office for 4 different lines of business. So Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, got it for grants management. Treasury got it for financial management. Homeland Security got it for cybersecurity, and General Services Administration got it for civilian payroll processing, or HR, although that has since moved to the Office of Personnel Management. So each of us, each QSMO was tasked to kind of get the lay of the land for what's happening in our respective communities in the shared services arena. And part of that is understanding the IT landscape, understanding who's using it, what services they provide, and also what's working and where are there opportunities to do things differently or modernize and continue to innovate. But along the way, we have also worked very hard to help identify who our stakeholders are. And you all are very important to us as one of those large stakeholder groups, a big portion of the recipient and applicant community. And we also work with all of the federal awarding agencies. I think at last count, we have almost possibly 50, maybe we're at 49. Most people think that there may be 20 or 26 federal grant making agencies, but there's close to double that. So we make an effort to talk to every single one a couple times a year if we can, but at least once, one-on-one, to get to know them, get to know their applicant and recipient community, get to know the programs that they have, the types of grants that they award, what solutions and services they are currently using in the IT side, or if they're using any of the shared services. Each of the QSMOs are also tasked with standing up a marketplace of shared solutions, of quality shared services. So obviously you're only going to hear from us today because that's most relevant to you all. But each of us, we do coordinate with the other ones. We're all trying to stand up our marketplaces and for as much as we can, even though we have different areas of, different functional areas, try to present some standardization to the community who would be coming to our marketplaces to try to consume the information we're trying to share. But along the way, we have established a mission to empower and enable our applicants, recipients, and federal awarding agencies to efficiently and effectively deliver on the grant's mission. And the way we work to do that is through 3 key pillars: to ease burden and drive efficiencies, be responsive to customer needs, and then leverage data as a strategic asset. You'll see a little box down at the bottom. We'll give you an answer to the next slide, but we are not an HHS-focused initiative. Although we are housed at HHS, we are very much a full grants management community initiative, and we make sure to tell that up front so that people don't get the wrong impression. Although we are there, we very intentionally bring in other agencies like Department of Education, National Science Foundation. Within HHS, we have NIH and Administration for Children and Families, and SAMHSA. We have EPA, lots of different agencies providing their great input to help shape not only the foundational items I've just been talking about with our vision and all of that, but to continue informing the work that we do and the initiatives that we undertake. So yeah, I think one last thing, we are not a policy making shop. That role still squarely resides at OMB. Next slide, please. So as we have been talking to all of our stakeholders, again, that's the recipient and applicant community, the federal awarding agencies, the shared service providers, and also the commercial vendor industry as well, we have been learning that there are some misconceptions out there. So we've been trying to incorporate a little bit of myth busting into our content when we go out and talk to people. So the first one is that the Grants QSMO does not own or operate a solution, a grants management solution. What we do is create this marketplace that brings in federal shared service providers into this marketplace. We dive in to get a more transparent understanding of them, of their customers, of the services they provide. How are things going? Are they on the cloud? All sorts of stuff. But there are individual agencies, home agencies, that manage and operate those solutions. So for example, if you know ERA at NIH, HHS manages that through NIH, not the Grants QSMO. If you know Grant Solutions, we, the Grants QSMO, are not Grant Solutions, but both of them are partners that we're working with to bring them into our marketplace. So We're also not the standard setting agency or the standards lead for grants management. That is also HHS, different part. We have a bit of a firewall between us. So what the work that they do across the community to establish the standards, then we work to help ensure that they can be implemented. And we do that via, at least to a certain degree, through working with our federal shared service providers to validate them. And that's one of the criteria we ensure that they're working on. And there's a lot of work to come in the standards arena. So that's also a forward-looking goal. But also when we advise agencies on their own investments in systems, we also make sure that they're adhering to the data standards. Any questions or comments before I move on? Okay. So slide 6, what we do as the grants QSMO. So I mentioned we coordinate and partner with all of these agencies, close to 50, to understand their needs, their challenges, their objectives. We're doing a really big effort that we're starting this year to advise agencies on their investments in grants IT. And where this is relevant for you all is that, as Andre is going to comment on here in a moment, related to an IT demand survey that we did this year, we also made sure to get a sense of how many systems and which systems are recipient facing, so that we have a sense of what you all are interacting with and what your colleagues across other parts of the recipient community are interacting with. And it's been very eye-opening, but it's important for us to help them understand where there are opportunities to reduce burden and to have a better sense of coordination and a more cohesive kind of federal experience if you are interacting with the federal government. I mentioned that we partner with our service providers. We are, as we launch our marketplace here in the coming months, we'll be very excited to launch that. Again, that will mean that we have validated the handful of providers that we're working with right now. But it is just a step on a longer maturity kind of runway. And one of the things that we'll be working on with them collaboratively is to identify areas for improvement in customer experience and performance and customer satisfaction. So performance measurement, I know that's a big topic of discussion from the OMB perspective, but we're also looking at that from just individual performance of like us, for our stakeholders, of the providers, for their customer base, how we can all continue to improve together and look for opportunities to standardize a lot of that. I mentioned promoting the adoption of the grant standards through this validation process and through our marketplace, and then collaborating on ways to modernize. For increasing collaboration, we really feel very strongly that we are in a very unique position within the grants community, particularly on the federal side. I think it has been our largest focus to date, but we have some opportunities that we'll discuss in a later slide where this may benefit you all as well. But we really think that we are in a unique position to provide some matchmaking, kind of switchboard operating and knowledge sharing across the community. There are people that have done this probably independent of any official sanctioned organization, but we have worked really hard to pull a lot of information together. And when we feel, or if we get permission from an agency, for example, to share this with another agency, then we put it in a single location on our Grants QSMO collaboration page, which is on OMB Max, and make sure we just tell people it's there. Hey, come to this page, save yourself some work, save yourself some resources, come here. Somebody else has already done it and they want to share it with you. So like market research, analysis of alternatives, a lot of really great stuff. And we're looking to see how we can expand that to continue being useful to the community. And improving the overall grants experience for stakeholders, including recipients. It's just, I'll mention here on the next slide, a big focus, a central focus for us is customer experience and the customer focus. So I mentioned that when we were working to identify who all of our stakeholders were, we very much are looking at all of that. It's how we interact with everybody and how each stakeholder group interacts with each other and with us. So we just really try to put that at the forefront of all of our engagements. And we're happy to see that that came out in the presidential management agenda as a key area as well. So we're promoting innovation and using the marketplace to do so by responding to ever-evolving awarding agency needs. The new legislation that seems to continuously get passed and additional funding that has to go out the door means things are changing every single day. And we have to evolve and try to adapt to meet those agencies' needs. And that is something that we look forward to, the evolution of our marketplace, to make sure that we're continuing to provide offerings to our federal agency partners that will meet those needs, help them execute their mission, and then downstream also enable you all to do your mission and achieve your mission and accomplish all of the work that the good work that you're all working to do. We obviously encourage shared service adoption when it makes sense to do so, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense. It might not be a good fit, or there may be an agency that just has a deadline of tomorrow that Congress has set for them to get this money out the door, and so they need to move very quickly. And so again, those are those real-time changes and challenges that agencies are facing that we're working with them to support. And then, as always, working with everybody to try to collect good ideas and feedback to inform our strategic priorities. Next slide, please. So how do we align to the presidential management agenda? If you've never heard of the PMA, no problem. It's an important kind of selling point in a lot of discussions that we have to make sure that people understand the value that we bring and how we are in good alignment with multiple administrations, multiple presidential administrations. So that's the exciting news, is that we've actually found support across multiple presidential administrations, which is not something that a lot of initiatives can say or claim. So what we do is good government, and we're really excited that we get to be a part of this initiative. So of the three priority areas, the first was strengthening and empowering the federal workforce, and delivering under priority 2, delivering excellent, equitable, and secure federal services and customer experience. The third one being managing the business of government to build back better. There, while we are not maybe exclusively called out where it says grants QSMO or shared services, the work that we're doing, some of what I've already talked about and some that Andrea is going to be talking about here in just a moment, are so supportive of these areas. And a lot of it is really that customer focus, that customer centric, just laser focus on the things that we need to do. So for example, under priority number 2, the marketplace that I talked about, and then the recipient seamless user experience, and Andrea is going to talk about, both very much work towards reducing burden. And when we talk about reducing burden, we really work to do that for all of our stakeholders. Reducing recipient burden has had a lot of attention, and rightly so. And so we work, and some of these initiatives that Andrea will talk about do speak directly to that. But we also take into account where there are opportunities to reduce burden on the federal grantor side as well, because if it works for them, it's going to have a cascading effect for everybody that they interact with across the grants management lifecycle. So we do think that the work that we're doing with the marketplace and these initiatives, these time-saving and efficient initiatives, will reduce burden for all of those players. And then under priority 3, the managing a business of government to build back better. This is where we talked about the future of our marketplace. It will be an ever-evolving website. It'll be a public website that we'll be launching here in the coming months. But we're working to increase capacity. I talked about the ever-changing real-time challenges agencies are facing. We need to bring additional capacity into the federal shared services space. There's wonderful offerings available, and they're doing great work, and they have a very important mission, but they can't take everybody on as a customer today. You all know how systems work, and things move very slowly. So we have to make sure that we can continue bringing in additional options for agencies to help them get their work done, to get you the money for you to do your jobs. So increasing the capacity of our marketplace will reduce the burden and just, again, help everybody accomplish their mission. And then modernizing the offerings and support agency investments to modernize their own systems, again, some of which may be recipient facing. So before I turn it over to Andrea, does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, Andre, I will pass it over to you to talk about the IT demand survey and our other wonderful initiatives.
Thank you. And heads up, coming up is going to be a little icebreaker. So I'm going to make you hopefully put something in chat, just a fun little trivia. Next slide. So we did, as Mary Beth mentioned, we did an IT demand survey. I'm going to give a lot of credit to Lynette and Lori from FDP, our friends there. You all were part of the reason why we actually did that IT demand survey. We had from 2018 an original survey of the systems. We knew it wasn't perfect. And a system sort of directory, I think is what that group called it, the committee called, that had sort of, I think you guys had just collected all this based on information you knew and the logins and the help desk links, all these great data points that we thought, oh my gosh, I want to make sure I have all that. We had been sort of doing it through interviews, but we said, let's do an IT demand data call. So one, we did the call to understand the current state and get the core information we wanted. But two, to also understand their needs. We know we need a marketplace, as Mary Beth mentioned. We need to know where their biggest pain points are, and what are the big things they're looking for. Also, it helps us to support investment planning guidance, because we know we hope to better know timelines of when they're actually going to have that need. We have the very unfortunate situation of trying to balance supply and demand, and I don't think anyone in history has been able to perfectly figure that out, but the data at least helps us prepare. Next slide. So this is the big question. So went out to the federal government, got a lot of information in. The question for you is, if you had to guess, how many core award management systems have the name grants in it? I will give you a hint. There are, we believe, core award management, we think there's about 60. So if you had to guess, what number would you guess have the name grants in their system? 32, says Lynette. 26, Lori knows the systems inventory. She's probably cheating. Let's see. 75, 5. Leanne, you're very wrong. I'm going to tell you. I'm getting some good ones in. 121. If I went beyond just core award management, we probably would get to 121. So let's see if let me scroll and see if anyone got the actual number. And I may do Price is Right rules to see if you went over, you busted. Oh my goodness. She definitely cheated, because you know who won is Lori Schultz, who I think you're the one who created that inventory in the first place. The number is 27, but you know what? I may be able to find some more if I kept looking hard enough. The point is, that's just a silly data point we have. But the reason why I point to this is because as grantees, it's probably pretty confusing having to remember Easy Fed Grants is USDA, grants.gov, grant solutions, which those are different parts of the process, I know. E-grants, Fed grants, Easy Fed grants. I mean, literally every possible connection, Grants Connect. I haven't even gone into the private sector solutions, which now we're looking at, right? There's so many. I'm like, please, if you're naming your system, don't put the word grant in it, just because it's confusing. But the reality is we have a plan to help it, even if they keep naming their systems with grant in it, make it less confusing for the recipients, so you don't have to remember the name of the system that goes with which grant or which application solution. Next slide. So we did this analysis, this IT demand survey. We did that in October, got the results, worked over November, December, pulled all this information out. So we have 150 and counting unique systems across our life cycle. Now, some of these repeat, right? Because although there's very few that actually go all the way end to end. So some of them get double counted, but most of them sort of sit within that pre-award, award, post-award management. As I mentioned, I think I have 60 that are really core. There's a lot of additional program systems, and I can tell you, we do not have all the program systems in this count. I know the agencies did not report that to us. And probably a lot of a lot of additional costs for that program reporting pieces. We also did not count in this if it's a manual process. So we have a lot of agencies not using a system. They manage, maybe it's just an email to you. Maybe they use grants.gov to collect your application, but then it's an email back and forth to your performance reports. Maybe they use ASAP for your payments. You probably have to email in your financial report. So that is not good either, right? Everything's locked in a PDF and we can't see it. It's definitely not the way of the future. Let me stop and see if there's any questions here on this one. So again, I would note the program pieces, I don't think they're actually that low. I think the reporting was that low, but quite frankly, that's not your typical shared service. The shared service is really that core award management. That's where we're trying to get more standard and think we can make a lot of progress. I will note when we asked about their biggest pain points, and I would be curious to see if this is what you may report as one of your bigger pain points, it did fall in the performance reporting piece. There's a lot of need for combined solutions, and they seem to hear a lot of frustration on the recipient side too. Any questions, thoughts? All right, next slide. So I'm going to dive now into what I call the core award management. That's really your sort of receiving of the application on the government side, your sort of management of the award, pushing out of the NOAA, and then the post-award management. We have 56 core systems. That's how we defined. 2 of them are official shared services on our marketplace, ERA and Grant Solutions. Those 2 manage 60% of the actual dollars going out the door in the federal government. That's a significant volume, primarily going through Grant Solutions, also a lot going through NIH's ERA. There is a little bitty sliver. We do have another shared service for NEH. It's for 3 or 4 small agencies, but the dollars in comparison just don't even barely show up on the chart. The reason why I think this is important is it's that 80-20 rule. It's not quite 80-20, it's 60-40. 60% of my volume is in 2 solutions. The other 40% is in 54 solutions, which is sort of crazy if you think about it, right? If 60% of the volume can be over here and using the same system, Grant Solutions there is a lot of customers there. I don't know that I could justify why we need 54 other systems. I don't think we need 2. I will be very direct. I definitely think we need choice in the government. We have tried to go down to just 3 in the past during the GMLRB days, and it didn't work. So we are not pushing for that. We are definitely also not pushing to replace 56 with 56. We are, however, pushing to get all those folks off manual systems into actually using a system. And for that purpose, we got to find them a low-cost solution. Hopefully, this doesn't upset you. It may upset you. It may not surprise you to see it. But without a doubt, I'm sure you're frustrated by the experience you have because you're dealing with maybe not all 56, but you're dealing with many of these systems. And I would just say of account when you go across the life cycle, we know you deal with probably, if you only have 1 grant, you're actually probably dealing with 8 systems just by when you include all the mandatory solutions. So it just gets really blown out of proportion whenever, we have so many in the core award management. And whenever those core don't interface with the other pieces that we have in our life cycle. So it's a big focus of us. We talk a lot about integration these days. Next slide. Let's go into more current initiatives. Next slide. So login.gov. I wanted to talk to you guys about this because the last time Mary Beth came to present, this was our big initiative. We said we are really going to work hard to get a single sign-on experience. There's no reason why recipients need to have all these different usernames and passwords. Next slide. So we had said we wanted single sign-on. We made the decision in the call to use login.gov. It's a government-provided shared authentication tool. We were very smart in choosing that in advance of what happened because this administration has put the full force behind login.gov. They've essentially given them a lot of technology modernization funds. And so it's actually free now for the federal government to use login.gov. And the side benefit is they also get massive cybersecurity, and you as recipients can trust when you're signing in using login.gov, your stuff is going to be secure. So there's, in my opinion, really no reason why our recipient facing systems should not be using login.gov. But this stuff takes time. So the good news is, since we last spoke to you, we've added more people to this list. We, I think, had sam.gov using it and all the sort of subsidiaries. Most of our shared service providers, Grant Solutions has really gone all in. So if you use it, you see the login.gov, ERA also. But we've gotten NSF. They've signed in. They're now using it. Treasury's Salesforce solution now uses it. Not on our list, but I wrote this all down before. Energy is using it. The other small shared service, NEH's solution, which is 4 other providers, they're going live very soon within this month. And we have 5 more agencies signed on and promising us to do this as they modernize their solutions. So some of it, we have to be realistic. They do need some integrators to help them actually do sort of the coding behind the scenes. But the good news is, because so many people have already adopted it, hopefully for you as a recipient, when you see it, you're like, sweet, I've already got login.gov. Let me click here and I'll use that. You're going to hear later why this really matters for us in creating an even better experience. But I'm going to go to the next slide because really it's just a question for you all. One, have you noticed an increase of login.gov in the systems that you use? And if you have problems, we want to hear about it, because I am a login.gov cheerleader, but if I'm selling a bad offering, then I want to know how to improve it. So any thoughts? And feel free to come off mute and verbally talk. Not sure if I'm talking to folks who actually don't use any of our systems. And if that's the case, then we apologize, because this entire thing may not be applicable.
So I have a question. This is Roger from Kansas State University.
Mm-hmm.
And I am finding more and more of these sites that I'm having to give social security numbers, driver's license, certifications, and everything. Why? And if we have 4 people that are using that site, all 4 of us are doing it. And we're told, we can't share passwords and blah, blah, blah. Why is there such an increase in asking for all of this personal information?
And this is through login.gov or just generally any
It's
government
a lot
system?
of these different sites. I'm trying to think specifically. There's a DOE one, there's Grant Solutions. Let me pull up my list. HUD, the HUD ELOC sites, we had to fill out multiple certifications for it. And it's a totally different site than what anybody else is using. There's the wide area workforce, there's
Okay. So
IPP,
you are talking about systems that don't use login.gov. HUD does not. Wide area workflow, that's DoD. They do not, although I presented to them last week about the benefits of using it, although I'm seeing some are noting some issues. So I'm going to go back to those I'm seeing on the chat. So one, let me just explain why you are being asked for multiple forms of identification. There could be 2 reasons for that. One, it is required. The federal government is amping up cybersecurity. That's just a fact. It is cybersecurity. Oh, don't quote me on this, but it feels like cybersecurity is more important than customer experience. We have to be secure. The way they do that, it's called multi-factor authentication, which means I say who I am, like Andrea Sampanis, log in, and then they're going to send me a text to my cell phone, not my personal or not my government cell phone. I have to take that and there's a code, right? That's the 2-factor. It's not just password, it's password plus something else. That is a major, like absolute best practice in cybersecurity. So I'm never going to be able to get rid of that. The president does not agree with me getting rid of that. Everything is actually going even further. The further piece are the things. It's not just authentication through 2-factor. It's an even further sort of identity proofing is what it's called, to say I am a human and then I am who I say I am. I am the human I say I am. That's another level, and you're sort of seeing that with sam.gov. They're in a pilot right now for that. So I was just trying to explain. I'm sorry if I'm going into more detail than needed,
No, that's fine. It just seems like we as individuals are being held more personally accountable than the institutions that we work for, and going into these sites. And I don't know. I get concerned about legal liability on a personal basis versus the institution basis and all of that when we're acting on behalf of an institution.
yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that will probably continue to be on an individual basis for like roles and everything, but and I think they're asking for things like Social Security. That is the heavy identity proofing, but it really is to say I am the human I say I am. I'm not a Russian robot saying I'm Andrea Sampanis, kind of a thing. I'm seeing though, I'm going back up. Others are complaining about dual authentication required by login.gov. We're single sign-up for other options. I think that means the multi-factor, possibly, which I just pointed back to. Multi-factor is a part of zero trust architecture, and everything's going to be moving towards that in the federal government. Some institutions have in common. We are totally fine with in common. We actually, that is in talking with our stakeholders like NSF, they pointed that out to us. We said, great, we are not saying you can have in common. We are just asking everyone offer login.gov as an option. If you already have in common, great, keep using it. We're okay with that if that's better for you. But many of our recipients are not in common customers. So groups like states would prefer more things like login.gov. Grants.gov were required. Okay, so this is very interesting because I had this come up at another conference. So someone's pointing out in grants.gov, we use login.gov. Then I think the probably person meant to say, then maybe you log into Grant Solutions and you're still having to log in with a login.gov username and password. That's because currently there's nothing connecting them to, it's called passing the token. That's a reason why we need this portal, which I'm going to talk about in a second. What it does is if everyone just offers the login.gov option now, it mostly just means you only have one username and password. You get to reuse that same one over and over. And it means for the government side, they are sort of putting that cybersecurity concern onto login.gov, and they don't have to spend their money worrying about that piece. Someone mentioned login.gov to be clunky to slow down the process. Second password requires use of your personal equipment. There are other ways that generally the cell phone is the most common way to log in. And so I personally think that would continue to be the way to do it. I'm not sure. Oh, Laura Lee Davidson has a question.
Well, it's not so much a question, Andrea. Can you hear me, Andrea?
Yeah.
I was responding to the earlier comment about personal versus institutional liability. I serve as AOR for the University District of Columbia. With that, I can commit the university by accepting awards, et cetera, at a certain level. So I personally don't have a problem with them authenticating who I am because I consider it the same as when you bond. When you're bonded, when you're in the financial area at a university or in any entity where your job requires you to commit the university. And so the university has to also protect itself by having you be the person who is fully accountable for your signature on these documents and so forth. So identifying ourselves and validating who we are, that we're not a robot, we're not this, we're not that. We're also fulfilling, at least the people on the line who are AORs, we're fulfilling the obligation to the university, but it is a personal commitment because you are signing on behalf of your university. Typically, you have the president, you have signature authorities at the high levels, but in the sponsored research office, you have a lot of power. And with that power comes responsibility and accountability, and you have to, this just comes with the job, and I don't know if anyone, I'm as concerned about all of the having to send my, driver's license and all my personal information into the system. But my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that if I change institutions or I'm accessing the system on another basis and I no longer work for UDC, I'm still in the system, login.gov, to use it wherever I move.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not as if it disconnects from UDC if I'm not at UDC. That's the viewpoint I have about it. I don't know if that's the correct viewpoint, but I just look at it as, if you're in a certain job, you're bonded, and this is a way to bond us because we are committing the university or on behalf of the university, and we are personally accountable for that commitment. Not that people can come back and sue us directly, but so I just wanted to share that feedback.
Thank you.
And I'll just add another comment on there. I understand where you're coming from. Part of my concern comes in is when you have individuals that are accountant ones or classified as accounting specialists who they're just report submitters or invoice submitters. They're not, signing the awards for the university or anything like that. That's where a lot of my concern comes in. It's more of the people down in the lower level of the university that's having to give out all this information.
And we have heard, so a few of the comments in the chat we have heard. One is your personal account being mixed up with your university account. That is actually something we brought up to login.gov. Actually, I'll give credit to Grant Solutions. They were hearing that a lot in their help desk. And so we had a joint meeting where we brought this all up to them. I thought they were working to fix that. They had told us they had fixed that problem, which means you could actually have two login accounts, one with your university email and one with your personal email. So you won't have to use your personal email. If you wanted to use your personal email, that's okay, for your login.gov. The other one, a lot of folks are mentioning role management. I knew this was going to come back up. It was a big discussion topic we had last time. We definitely, actually, out of the last meeting, we went and we talked with our federal provider working group. NSF even brought up, they have some sort of innovative ways they use roles, sort of I can't remember what it's called, like other AOPC, I think it's a special role. We will continue to work that. It's not as easy as you might think because roles are actually defined by the vendors establishing the solution. So role management is one thing. Role naming is going to be hard to standardize probably, but we still hear you on that. It's just, it's a gnarly one to manage, where single sign-on is a little bit easier. I see someone pointing to DOJ. Love it. I would love if DOJ Just Grants would adopt. We'll continue to work with them. They were on a call with me yesterday where I was talking to vendors about it. So hopefully they'll, we work very closely with DOJ. So hopefully we can work on that one. Let's see, appropriate roles, very complicated. Oh, when people take care. Yeah, we're hearing I think a lot of these comments are about the need for institutional roles within our systems, because we've always heard you can't go on leave if you're the person who's the approving official. Okay, too many clicks to get to the website. After logging in, we still have to select the system you are attempting to log into and then log into grants.gov or other systems. So this is really interesting. I think folks are going to login.gov to get to the system. You can just still go to grants.gov. You would still go to the page you always went to, grants.gov. And then when you need to log in, you choose the button login.gov, and that's how you get in. I had this other issue. Someone thinks that like login.gov is going to be the like front portal to all systems that leverage login.gov. That's not really the way it works. It's an option so you don't have to keep remembering all your different username and passwords. Okay, let's see, Mary Beth. I can't read as fast. Any other? I'm seeing a lot of people talking about Karen's comments, so let me read Karen's comment really quickly.
You're almost caught up.
Yeah, this is the institutional. This is the yeah, it's the issue of the roles, because we have we need ability to have the institutional officials. I hear you. So go ahead,
Andrea.
Meredith.
Sorry, there was one comment in there about login.gov that it works great, but when it doesn't, if they have a question, there's no voice to connect to. Any thoughts on a help desk or anything you could share about that?
That's a very good point. Another one we have brought up to grants or to the login.gov team. It's a major issue. We don't love the service desk. One, we've had problems with them, and we've actually worked to fix a lot of the scripts at the service desk because they were sending folks the wrong way. But we also, just so you know, when the login.gov team asked for all that funding that made it free for government to use, we also encourage them to put in their funding requests to create a actual live help desk. Because right now everything's via email and it's not 24 hours. And that's an issue, particularly when we're working with the international grantees that have issues. I can't promise if they're going to turn that on. They got their money, I'd say about 4 months ago. So they're still working to plan everything out. But I just want to share, we did share that information and we continue to share information. Lynette, for instance, does share, we had problems with UEI. We know many of you had problems getting any information back on the DUNS to UEI. We can't fix every single problem, but generally when it was consolidated, we did share it at the White House as well as with the GSA team. So please know we are trying to work and making sure we're sharing when we hear of issues.
Andrea, the grants.gov thing keeps popping up. So, I mean, people are uniformly having the same experience. They go to grants.gov, they log in using login.gov, and then it's still prompting them to use a grants.gov username and password. I think we might want to.
We definitely want to take that back to Julia's. Yes, we are. Yeah. We sit in this similar home agency, so we will. Hopefully, Lynette, you can share with us. We can make sure we get the copy of this chat because that's really helpful for us. We last time we really went through the chat, so thank you. Lynette says we'll do. All right, I'm going to keep moving on, but if you do have other feedback, please feel free. Oh, go ahead.
One more, because I think it's a softball for you. Department of Education. And are they going to move into the 21st century and permit wider secure access via login.gov?
I'm glad. Oh, yeah, you're right. That is a softball. Well, it's coming is what I can say. So G5 is, as you all know, the solution for education. It's their grants management and payment solution. They have awarded, we helped with this review, a new solution. It's called G6. They're developing it right now. In the requirements, we made them say you will be required to use login.gov as the authentication. So the new solution, they're one of my 5 that I said was going to adopt. By the way, I'll just tell you the 5. So the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, when it moves to GSA, will be using login.gov. Education will be using it in their modernization. FEMA has promised that they will have it on their roadmap. Treasury ASAP. We're very upset they don't have it yet, but it is on their modernization roadmap. They're also expected to modernize in the next year. And then Commerce, as they move to ERA, they will be adopting login.gov. So that list, I will be on, it continues to grow. I know I'll add at least 3 more as they continue to come and buy off our marketplace. So hopefully we come back next year and I've got even better results for you all. If I log into Assist, okay. We are definitely going to go to the grants.gov. So thank you all for putting information in specific to grants.gov. That should not be happening. So we need to talk to that team. All right, next slide. So now we want to talk about the portal. Keep going, next slide. The idea of this portal, we said, hey, if we can get all these recipient facing systems to use login.gov, and we create a portal that is, it's pretty basic, right? It just pulls the information from our common, sam.gov, grants.gov, you log in, you put in your UEI, you can see your open applications, your open awards, because you've logged in using login.gov, and because those other systems also use login.gov, you should be able to click on the award and it should know, if you said manage grant, it would know and send you into that other grant based on the grant it is. So if it's an education grant, I know you need to be going into G5. If G5 is also, well, let's say G6 is in existence. When G6 is in existence and they use login.gov, you would click on that grant, it would take you into G6. You don't need to remember, oh, that grant's education and therefore education uses G6. Or this grant's AmeriCorps and therefore I need to go to Fed, I think they're called E-grants. I even get confused on all the grants names. This is the idea that we were driving towards. We are continuing to drive it. That's why we're pushing login.gov so hard. It's sort of a foundational step to get to the point where it is that one portal. So you come in and then we can transfer the tokens. Additionally, it would require us to pull the information from the different systems so that we know, what we know details about those grants, like available funding still, things that you all told us in the human-centered design we did for this. I am sad to report we haven't made more progress in this area. We have done what we can, like the login.gov push and understanding the systems directory so we could build the business logic behind. What I don't have is money to build this. I need money because you are looking at 2/3 of the entire grants QSMO team, Mary Beth and I and our director. That's all we have. I don't have system developers on staff, and we need a system developer. We requested funding. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So what we have done, we requested funding from the Technology Modernization Board. We submitted that in June. We quickly got approved. We were one of, I think only like 10% got approved, and we made it through. Then we submitted our proposal in September, and then we waited. And we only got feedback last month. So we lost a lot of time and we were really frustrated, quite frankly. Yeah, someone should give us those login.gov funds. I don't want to take it away from login.gov because that was critical. We need them to get funding. We did though, while we were waiting, we put a lot of time into cheerleading for them so people would start adopting. However, we have gotten back information, the feedback, and now we're working to update it. In the meantime, we met with a lot of different countries. We actually met with some of the ORCID team and UK group and Australia and Singapore, just to see what they did. Singapore has a pretty impressive unified solution. And so we are excited though. We're in the process of updating our proposal to resubmit, but there's a big change because in those 6 months, a lot of things happen. One, there's a push for USA.gov to be the digital front door of the federal government. So we're working with that team to plan that out. Also, this little bill called the Infrastructure Act, IIJA, got passed to put a lot of money out there and a lot of reporting requirements. So maybe many of you, I don't know, it's not a heavy research focused bill, it's heavy infrastructure, obviously. And a lot of, and we did a whole analysis of that bill. A lot of the agencies that got funding are a lot of the ones that are manual. They have a lot of manual processes, or their recipients are, heavily used to manual processes and not, they don't have the impressive API enabled systems like many of you have in the universities. So maybe not all of you, some of you may not have all that either. So you know the feeling, but when we're trying to do some, centralized required performance reporting, it's going to be a nightmare. And so the grants QSMO, we do like to take those problems where they are and, be really relevant. So we've actually we flip-flopped our milestones. A piece of the RUX was always to expand to do focus on performance reporting based on the feedback we had in our demand survey. But now because of IIJA, that will be our first effort. We will do the single sign-on. We'll get everyone into a portal. It just won't have the dashboard. It'll have a systems directory, and then we'll be building out this centralized intake. That's our goal. That's what we'll be presenting to the TMF board. I pray to God we get money, because I'm really nervous of what happens if we don't get money to build this. So wish us luck. If you have any congressmen, feel free to call them and tell them to support the grants QSMO. Next slide. So a key part of this, so I said there's some foundational pieces. One, login.gov, so that we can at least get folks, when you've signed in, you're all using the same one and we can pass tokens. They have to already be able to accept the token and we can just push it. The next one is, again, that business logic of, okay, I know you are this person, you have this grant, and I know this grant links to X system. So that was a lot of analysis we had to do. Next slide. So in order to do this, we created, there's sort of three big data sets. The first one being the systems inventory. That tells us a lot of the details of the systems, sort of what Lori, not the predecessor, the thing that followed after Lori's very great work to create her systems inventory. We use that, but we really blew it up. There's a lot more information in there about cost, O&M contracts, expected, modernization timelines, et cetera. That is available to the whole federal government. We've pushed it out. They all have access to it on our Max page, as Mary Beth said. Unfortunately, it's not available to you all, but it's something that I could probably strip out a few columns, like the contract stuff. I don't think I can share, but I am very happy to share that with FDP if that's something your committee would be interested in. I think there is a specific, Lori's committee sort of specific. So my plan was to send that to you all. The second piece is USA spending grants repository. Anyone has access to USA spending. So we're not really giving you any new data. It's just, we've pulled it into an Excel that's sort of easier to manage. So since we had already done that work for our own purposes, we provided that to the government. And again, that's something I'm happy to send. It's all public information, but it's a little bit better, easier to digest. And lastly, it says coming soon because it's not on our collaboration site, but we have it done, which is, again, this key part of the RUX portal is the systems directory. So it's by agency. This is the system name. Here's the link. Here's the help desk. Here's the phone number to call. And do they use login.gov or not? Because we want to shame them if they don't. And so that's what we have. That will be, essentially created and very quickly developed into our portal. So at least, if nothing else, when you sign on, you have that list of systems and how you can quickly get to them. So we're very excited. As I mentioned, I'm sad I don't have more to report on the portal, but I will say we have done everything in our power to do what is within our ability to do without additional funding. We will, I again promise to take back that grants.gov issue though and try to get that fixed because that's not a good situation. And Lynette asked me, is there anything FTP can do to help support your proposal for funding? I will let you guys know. I will say, very sweet, our login.gov friends have offered, they're going to write a letter of support for our proposal because they see how supportive we've been of them. And it helps each other out. So if I need that letter of support, Lynette, I may be coming to you guys and see if your executive director will support us too. I think that's it, Mary Beth. If there's any questions for us remaining sort of on the IT side. All right, back to you, Mary Beth.
Awesome. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we have one final question that we wanted to tee up as a discussion item, and this is potentially an area where we can get to something that would be of use to your community. When I was talking about how we're trying to pull together a lot of great resources, right now it's been a lot of resources for our federal partners, but we want to be able to get to the point of doing that for you all as well. So in a lot of the conversations we've been having with our one of our governing groups that we created, the Grants QSMO's Federal Awarding Agency Work Group, we've teed up quite a few conversations related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and what are the barriers to entry? Who are the parts of the community that are facing certain challenges more than others, and helping us try to get a better understanding of what's going on across the landscape and the full ecosystem of our partners. So one of the things that has come up has been the availability of technical assistance. And so when we met with our Federal Awarding Agency Work Group last week, we asked them to share, and we have probably 3/4 of our federal awarding agencies represented on that. So that's still pretty good. That's 30, 35, close to 40 possibly of our agencies that are on there now. But we asked them, what does your agency do? Is it done at a headquarters level in a coordinated manner across the entire department, or is it done at a lower level? And so it's kind of all across the board, which is not surprising. Kind of the way federal agencies tend to be organized also tends to align with how, from an actual hierarchy, tends to align to the way their systems are organized or not organized, and as well as how they approach policy and just other topics affecting the grants management lifecycle. So we heard across the board. So there were some that were dealing with it at the headquarters level, some were at individual program offices, and there was technical assistance that were tailored to individual programs. But what we were offering to the community was, if you have a link to this information, share it with us, because we can absolutely create a single location to put that information. But I think there is an interest to know if there is enough technical assistance out there for the applicant and recipient community. And this may not be as relevant to the research community, but we wanted to bring it to you all today so that you know what we're bringing to this, the question that we're interested to learn more about and bringing to the applicant and recipient community. So if we could go to the next slide. Question here is, would having a single repository of training topics and technical assistance be helpful? And if so, for which parts of the process? So you might be familiar with what grants.gov has without needing to log in. You can get to their Grants 101 library of training information, but that's not probably, it doesn't, I don't think it covers everything, and certainly not if it's an individual program that you need assistance on. So yeah, let us know your thoughts here. And also, if you have any grantor agencies that you work with that you think does a particularly excellent job with technical assistance, either with the actual assistance itself or communicating the assistance, we would love to hear that.
Mary Beth, there's a comment noting UEIs are hard to get, particularly right now, I think, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Good to know. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, on that one, I would just reiterate that we were aware of that. Thank you to Lynette for sort of elevating issues that folks were having and either getting a new one or recertifying. We did share that again with OMB and GSA team. I think that they put out some responses. And I would just say too, we are hearing that a lot of times through your FDP partnerships, if you have grantor agency points of contact, like sharing that information with them, and even like giving it as an email, it's something easy to forward and let us to help. We may not be able to fix the issue at the federal service desk with sam.gov, we can at least make sure we're getting communications back out to explain things behind it.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for your comment about it would be great if you could reach a live person for help with a particular issue rather than filling out forms and tickets. Definitely share your challenge there. That is also an issue that we discussed. I won't say uncovered because I think it's pretty much everywhere. But that we discussed with one of our federal awarding agency partners when they were helping us understand the equity related challenges a lot of their applicant recipient groups face. And I'll give the shout out. It was Environmental Protection Agency. They have been really a wonderful leading voice in this barriers to entry conversation to try to explore that. A lot of agencies actually every agency is required to do work in this regard. EPA particularly helped inform the Grants QSMO team, and one of their staff members at headquarters literally sat in the chair and walked through the process, put herself in your shoes, and just uncovered additional information that they at the headquarters level had not previously understood or fully understood or fully appreciated. And one of those things was the challenges with help desk support, particularly with SAM and maybe with grants.gov. And is there an opportunity for them to coordinate or to have their websites be pointing to each other? And then even for example, with tribal challenges and FSRS, yes, with the tribal community, that the questions that they may have are not the same questions, not the average questions that an applicant or recipient is going to have. They often have very specific challenges for their community. There may also be language challenges. And so, an idea was floated. Could there be help desk offerings that are tailored in a way to actually address certain areas or certain communities? So I'll just sharing that for what that's worth. Technical assistance that's centralized about common issues would be helpful because all the systems are different. It's necessary to have some specialized assistance. HRSA electronic handbooks. That's right, Jennifer. Thank you. That's a good reminder there.
More to the point of earlier, why we don't want to replace 56 with 56, right? Because that's 56 different help desks. Totally agree. I did get a comment too. It was directed a little bit more to me, but it was about ERA Commons having a great helpline and email, which helps the faculty member at 7 p.m. on a Saturday when they're, rushing to get something in. So we will make sure to give kudos to our friends at ERA. They are, we're a fantastic partner in all that we're doing.
Thank you for sharing that. That's helpful to hear, really helpful to hear. So like Andre was saying, when you share what your challenges are, you pass that to Lynette, she passes that to us. We pass it along. We also pass along the kudos that may come through. So we know that it's a tough job being a shared service provider. It's tough to make everybody happy, but we also want to acknowledge that there is excellent work happening and awards are getting out the door. But we all know nobody's perfect. None of us are perfect. I just went to a restaurant in DC this weekend called Imperfecto that was basically perfect, but that's the exception. Any other thoughts or comments on technical assistance, or what are some good examples of technical assistance programs across the community or different agencies? Okay, well, if you think of anything, you can always reach out to us. If we go to the next slide, it has our email address, but it also, and I'll drop this into the chat, we are, to my earlier comment about the customer focus, we are now doing little follow-up customer satisfaction pulse surveys after our speaking engagement. So you can either scan it with your cell phone or just click on the link that I just dropped into the chat. Just a quick little survey. Let us know how we did. Be honest. We can't be effective or address any of our weaknesses if you don't tell us what they are. We might have blind spots. So yeah, please let us know what's working, what's not, and how we could continue to make these sessions even more substantive for you all. And like I said, grants QSMO at hhs.gov. You can reach out to us there. or coordinate through Lynette. If there are specific topics, we can always come back and address certain topics too. But we're so grateful for the partnership, the ongoing partnership that we have with you, Lynette, and with the whole team and with FDP. You're a wonderful stakeholder group, and we're so appreciative of what you have shared with us over the last couple of years and what we've been able to share with you when we present.
Thank you. We are so grateful for both of you and your energy and your persistence. And I think the perspective that you bring, not being in a particular agency and really in the weeds in the operation, I think is super valuable. And every time we get together and talk about things, it's more and more valuable. So I hope we can continue these. And definitely, if people have questions, we'll save this chat and go through it and see if there's maybe a little Q&A we want to get out to everybody. But I'll just thank you guys again, you gals again, very much, and thank Chad for us. And thank everybody. So we have 157 people that hung on till the end here, and I want to thank everybody there. I think we got to a high of about 215, so much appreciated. And I think Alex, one of our co-chairs, FDP co-chairs, is on, and since this is the last session, I just wanted to see if she wanted to say anything to wrap up our whole meeting. Alex, are you still there?
I'm here. Thanks, Lynette. So I'd like to thank you as well. And it's not just informative, but inspiring. I just love hearing about an initiative within, my video. I love hearing about initiatives to really streamline areas that we know has been a pain point for years. So I'm really looking forward to it, and thank you. And I just wanted to say hello. You saw me at the beginning and now you see me at the end. It was an amazing meeting. I want to thank everybody for attending, all our attendees and your contributions and your questions. All of our presenters did an amazing job, really great sessions. And while I'm talking about presenters, I also want to thank everybody that's worked on a committee. The amount of work that takes place between these meetings is not always apparent. You can tell when you're hearing through the sessions, but thank you to everybody that works on a day-to-day basis to make FDP what we are. And then especially, I'd like to thank Barbara Gardner, who is our chair of the program committee. Amazing job. She keeps it running, and we couldn't do it without her. Dick Seligman for acting as our interim executive director. We really appreciate everything he's doing to keep us afloat during this time of transition. And then finally to Sarah. Sarah, you've been amazing. I'm surprised you still have your voice from having to do all these introductions, but you did a great job. So did Moises, both of you. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to wrap it up and thank you again. And we will see you in a few months. Take care. Bye, everybody.